What is going on, Chief High Smoke? Back to you with another one. And when the draft rolls around in April, the Las Vegas Raiders are going to get a hell of a player in Fernando Mendoza. Tonight, he dominated the football game versus the Oregon Ducks in the college football playoff. He has more touchdowns thrown than incompletions. In the last 25 years, there hasn't been a quarterback coming out with the number one overall pick with this much hype. Michael Vick, David Carr, Carson Palmer, Eli Manning, Alex Smith, Jamarcus Russell, Matthew Stafford, Sam Bradford, Cam Newton, Andrew Luck, Jameis Winston, Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Joe Burrow, Trevor Lawrence, Bryce Young, Caleb Williams, Cam Ward. Now you can argue Mike Vick with his speed, Eli Manning, his brother and his dad with the experience and his family, Matthew Stafford, the arm strength, Andrew Luck coming out of Stanford. People said he was going to be one of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen. Now those guys had a lot of hype around them. Joe Burrow with his national championship win, 50 touchdown season, but something about Fernando Mendoza. He doesn't have the best arm strength. He's not the fastest quarterback coming out, but all he does is win. All he does is throw touchdowns. All he does is make the right decisions. You rarely ever see him make a wrong one. Tonight he had one bad decision where he took a sack. Probably should have thrown the ball away. But Fernando Mendoza is the best quarterback to come out in the last 25 years. There is nobody on this list with this much hype. I mean, the only guy that you could argue is Andrew Luck when he came out of Stanford. They said he was pro ready, a day one starter, someone that made the right decisions like Mendoza does. It's just the last couple games I've watched from Mendoza, he doesn't want to throw an incomplete pass, so he just tucks it and runs with it. And what a lot of people don't talk about him is how good his mobility is. I think people will say it's a weakness, but it's actually a strength because he just sees things open up. His awareness is the best that I've seen out of an NFL draft quarterback prospect coming out. His efficiency, he knows what to do with the football. I'm going to get into his strengths and what I think he's going to be good for the Raiders. His character is number one. Leadership. You hear him in the interviews. He kind of reminds me of Tebow, right? When he does an interview or, he's on camera and he's talking, people are just dialed into what he's saying. His efficiency, what he does with the football. He's got more touchdowns than incompletions. Rarely ever makes a bad decision. I mean, you don't see the turnovers. You don't see the fumbles, the bad snaps, the bad throws, the inaccurate high throws. Everything is just right on point. Ball placement, I wrote down is a big strength for him. Accuracy as well. And a lot of people say, we talked about it, the mobility is a weakness for him. But I think it's a strength. And he's going to go to the Raiders, and it's going to remind you of a player that they used to have, Rich Gannon. And being a Chiefs fan and playing him for a couple times, he used to frustrate the hell out of you on third down because what Rich used to do is they would run these little Wheatley and Kaufman right behind him. I think it was Kaufman. But they would have two running backs right behind him, and he'd play action fake, get out of the pocket, and then he'd run for a first down. And it almost kind of reminds you of what Mendoza does. But his cons are, and I also wrote down that a big strength for him is his short and intermediate throws. Crossing 15-yard outs, just the out route, the 5-yard out. He can do it in the slot. He can do it with the outside wide receivers. Just really good ball placement. Wheel routes for the running backs in the flat. His checkdowns. Rarely do you ever see him miss one of those. Back shoulders are impressive. Some of the best throws that I've seen coming out from a quarterback. He's always giving his wide receiver a chance to catch the football. Now, what are the negatives are about Fernando Mendoza for Raiders fans. He doesn't have a lot of them, but his deep ball is average at best. I know Al Davis loved to run the deep ball, loved to get quick scores. Um, you know, Sometimes I noticed on the deep ball he tends to underthrow his wide receivers. Got to come back for it. But his arm strength isn't the best. Doesn't do a good job of protecting his body like he should. Needs to get down, learn how to slide a little bit better. He tends to take on safeties and linebackers. He needs to get into the weight room, add about 15 pounds onto his body. He's about 220 right now. He played in Cignetti's offense. It's a heavy RPO system. So I think with the Raiders, they need to build that new system around Fernando Mendoza's strengths, not the strengths of the head coach or the offensive coordinator. Do what Fernando does best. So in Cignetti's offense, there isn't a lot of seven-step drops. There isn't a lot of deep drops. It's three-step drop, get the ball out quick, first or second read, tuck it or run. So Fernando needs to do a good job reading defenses pre-snap because I noticed he gets happy feet. If his first read isn't there, he starts having poor mechanics in the pocket, and that's when he tends to get inaccurate. But he rarely does that. The Raiders have a solid offense in place. Tucker, Jack Beck really played well the last couple games. Thornton needs to play better, but he's a solid deep ball threat. Ashton Genty, I really thought he came on the back half of the year. Brock Bowers is still considered to me the best tight end in the league. I know McBride had a hell of a year this year, but the weakness for the Raiders and really Mendoza coming to this football team is the offensive line for me. In free agency, they need to address that. The good thing for the Raiders is in 2026, the free agency class for offensive linemen is a little bit deeper than 2025. So they can be flexible in that area if they want to go ahead and draft a couple guys. They really need to figure out what they're going to do with Jackson Powers Johnson. Is he going to be a guard or is he going to be a center? There's a new regime coming in. So the Raiders' offensive line is the weakness, and they need to find guys that can block for him because Mendoza's a hell of a player, but you could ruin him if you have this same offensive line that you gave Geno Smith and Ashton Genty last year. You really need to get back to that offensive line. In 2000, I want to say 2016, 2016, with Donald Penn. I forget the center. Was it? I forget the center, but he ended up getting the center from the Chiefs that year. But that offensive line was one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, and the Raiders have to get back to that. If the structure of the Raiders' offense remains intact, Mendoza will dominate. He understands coverage, plays on schedule, and puts the ball on the upfield shoulder so his receivers can stay in stride. Cignetti's RPO and play action scheme demanded that Mendoza read leverage and trigger quickly, and he did exactly that with clean feet, a compact release, and little wasted motion for NFL coordinators who want to live in second and manageable. Mendoza's short and intermediate ball placement will be a cheat code. Mendoza's best attributes are probably his processing speed and poise. He's a fast post-snap assessor, which allows him to play ahead of most pressure, and he's steadily improved throughout his career as a pocket navigator with his sliding, climbing, and resetting. Additionally, he's displayed a willingness to stand in the face of free rushers and deliver with accuracy. Panic, heaves, and YOLO balls are uncommon on his tape, and when he loses a rep, the result is usually a throwaway or a sack, not an airmailed turnover. As a runner, Mendoza is more functional than flashy. He'll likely never be featured as part of a designed ground game in the NFL, but in college, he was able to steal first downs as a scrambler and execute boots, keepers, and occasional zone read carries. He doesn't create explosive plays with his legs, but he's not a negative rusher. Bottom line, Fernando Mendoza is going to be drafted number one overall by the Raiders, but they have to surround him with a solid offensive line. He's not a creator, someone that's just going to take over games. There really has to be a solid game plan and good scheme around Mendoza's strengths for the Raiders to be successful. Guys, if you can, go check out Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Daniel does highlights on the NFL, MLB, NBA, hockey, Olympics, wrestling, any type of highlight that you can name of. Daniel Berry has it. I'd appreciate it if you go check him out. He also does play-by-plays on the Dodgers, Lakers, Rams. Go over there and show him some love. That's Daniel Berry Sports Highlights. Thank you guys for watching.